we had this long talk in Los Angeles one night about storytelling and about just, I mean, all forms of it, all the different platforms. And obviously as content and the presentation of it was changing, there were people trying to get their arms around how this would evolve. And Kobe was, I mean, he was just obsessed with it. He used the word consumed. And we talked about it for a while. And I wanted to, you know, either write a story about it or talk about it somewhere on the network on one of the platforms. And Kobe wasn't ready for that. He's like, no. This entire conversation is off the record. We'll talk about it at some point. But here's what I'm doing. And he had just gotten so deep in the research about storytelling, all of it, voice, point of view, emotion, detachment, all of it. We talked about it. So the last interview, I was able to get him to talk about it on the record. And as we see what he was doing these last few months. I mean, there were two great passions that it seemed like he was, I'm talking about professionally now, in addition to family. One of them was women's sports. I mean, that was so important to him. We have seen the pictures of him and his beautiful daughter at courtside and other places, in the video of them as they played, and she had some of Kobe's moves. But that extended to a lot of other areas in women's sports, all of women's sports, with these daughters that he loved so dearly. And the other one that I know of anyway was storytelling, whether it was producing it, whether it was telling the story himself, whether it was writing. And we talked about that and sort of how you sort of walled yourself off to be able to create the time to create this sort of content. And I was fascinated by it. He didn't talk about it for the longest publicly. And I sort of thought I knew, because we were talking about these things. And then once he mentioned it, it was clear he was ready to spring into action. Again, going back to Stephen A's analogy, that, you know, the Mamba mentality is not reserved for basketball. It wasn't. It was anything that he was going to attack or he thought you should attack. And Stephen A knows it. I know we've been on the receiving end of some of these conversations where he got wound up too. And I'm sure Max did too in his time in LA when he was working for the radio that covered the Lakers. You got the other side. You got the full blast furnace when he was disagreeable and thought there was a place you should have gone and didn't, or thought there was something you could have said and should have said. And that for those people that he held in enough regard to put the bar very high, you had those conversations. But all of that seemed to be coming into play and shaping this man, this young, brilliant man who was evolving in a way that we were just starting to get a glimpse of.
The interesting thing about it, Mike, and you allude to all of that, this is an Academy Award winner. Let's remember that. Let's also understand something here. When he and I were hanging out on New Year's Eve, he was telling me a story, believe it or not, and it's not really to give the company a plug, but it is appropriate, because obviously with his detail that shows up on ESPN+, he was excited about that. Here's why. Kobe ventures into this world, and he's writing and he's creating this content. The very first project that he did, he was talking, this is literally on New Year's Eve, he was telling me this story. The first project that I did, I actually got it in late. He said, I got it to ESPN 45 minutes before the deadline. That's it. And he said, they said, don't worry about it, and put it right up. He said, an hour later, my content that I thought would have to go through layers upon layers upon layers of things before it was put up. He said, an hour later, my content was on the dial. He said, I couldn't believe it. And I got so excited about it because he was monitoring Walt Disney's purchase of 21st Century Fox and all the things that came with it, the bevy of opportunities, the floodgates that was opening up. And he was fantasizing about the kind of things that he was going to do working in concert with Connor Shell and his group of folks over with ESPN Plus and what have you. These are the kind of things that he was thinking about. And he knew more about our business than people in the business. All right, I'm not playing anymore. This is the world that I'm venturing into. And he just suffocated himself with knowledge about this business and how he could ultimately create content that could really turn into something special for himself, for Walt Disney, ESPN, and everything in between. That's the way that he thought. And then he would go to the Wilbons of the world, to people like myself and others, and he would challenge us. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wilbon. He would challenge us to be the same. Why are you not doing it? My godson, Nicholas Brown, my boy Jeff, his son, y'all have met him. Nicholas goes up to him a couple of years ago. They meet in our LA studios. And Nicholas is damn near bragging about the fact that he's got a 3.5 GPA. And Kobe looks at him and says, could you explain to me why it's not a 4.0? Why is it not a 4.0? What are you talking about, 3.5? Why are you sitting up here so you with a smile on your face, all happy with your 3.5 when there's a 0.5, this 0.5 room for you to go? Why are you not targeting that? That was Kobe Bryant with everybody.
Right. There's no.
Stephen,
there was no
Mamba mentality.
Max, let me interject just for a sec. So Stephen A. and I, we write so infrequently now. This is what we did for a living. That's how. Remember, I mean, Kobe is not so young that he didn't know us first as sports writers. That's what we were. And my writing has gone to a drip. I mean, I very rarely write anymore, which I regret, but I don't.
Same here.
And not too long ago, Kobe just said, hey, on a day like this, and I don't remember what the story was, you know, I expected to see you write. Why are you not writing anymore? And I was trying to dance around it and come up with an excuse. And he's like, wait a minute. You prepared your whole life. You did this thing at this level. That's how I got to know you. And you're not doing it anymore? I mean, that was, and so again, the bar was high. And there were people, once he knew you and he knew what you did well, he knew what you excelled at and how you got there, he didn't want to hear that you didn't have time for this anymore. Mike, he thought that you had time for all things.
Hey, Mike, this man, you know what Kobe said to me, Max, about 4 months ago? He said, I just got one thing to say. And I like, what I do now? What I do now? He went like this. How the hell have I written a book before you? He said, that's just pathetic.